does the removal of offensive Seuss books help or hurt systemic racism? Also, because I love my viewers and I do not want to hurt them, big content warning in bright red letters and everything. This is a visual medium and there are going to be some offensive visuals. If you feel like you might not be in a good space for this discussion, or if you do not feel like you can absorb vile imagery and be okay afterwards, that is absolutely alright. You are welcome here and I will see you in other videos. Now that the caveats have all more or less been emptored, and in the spirit of making sure that we are all on the same page and know what is being discussed, I'd like to start with Part 1, the books we are losing. I've actually been surprised at how little media coverage I've personally seen of the Dr. Seuss recall. Saw a little segment on The Late Show, Fox News. They never get anything first, so maybe it will be old news already by the time I've released this video. But all of the non-problematic work of Dr. Seuss is going to remain untouched on their bookshelves. The cats will have hats, the fox will have socks, and the Grinch, probably several Grinches, will steal Christmas again this year. The list of books that Dr. Seuss Enterprises has opted not to publish goes as follows. And to think I saw it on Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, Scrambled Egg Super, McElligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, and The Cat's Quizzer. When I have to use notes for these videos, I try to disguise the fact that I am doing so with clever cuts and whatnot, but I am totally reading that list off my phone. The reason I'm reading that list off my phone as opposed to committing it to memory is because those books didn't mean a lot to me when I was growing up. And obviously I cannot speak for generations of readers dating all the way back to 1960 when Green Eggs and Ham was first published. I feel like those who are outraged saying their childhood is being erased might be a little disingenuous, because when you're the publisher you don't necessarily lean on your more obscure titles, you play the hits. Therefore, I don't think it's too much of a stretch of the imagination to presume that I am not the only kiddo who knew who the Lorax was and the Grinch was, but couldn't name a single character from, and to think I saw it on Mulberry Street. You're only talking about 6 titles that are going away. And the reason they're going away is because somebody higher up made a call that something contained on their pages might hurt readers of color. The instinct to not hurt your readers of color is a good one, and I appreciate the good intentions. And if that was all I had to say on the subject, this would be a nice, short, uncontroversial video. But I'm on part 1 of this video, and I got 5, which is my clumsy but sincere attempt to bring us to Part 2, a seemingly unrelated story. When my high school classmates and I were 16 years old, we became acquainted with this creature who was a no-good, very bad human being, and not a great teacher either. Not just my opinion, he was objectively a bad human being, who had an uncanny fascination with the bodies of teenage girls, and had such uncanny luck that the first young lady he enjoyed at our high school was the sheriff's daughter. As you can imagine, he excused himself from the faculty shortly before this became common knowledge, and we got to read about him in the newspaper more than once. Knowing Midwesterners as I do, I'll bet some well-meaning soul cut that article out and sent it to his mama. Hey Betsy, your boy's in the paper. His status as a bad teacher is less objectively definable, but when his successor came on board, we had to boogie through a lot of U.S. history because dude had spent an entire semester on the Civil War, and he was only supposed to spend a couple of weeks on that particular subject. And in our semester-long mosey through Civil War history, we learned all about the South. What the soldiers were eating for breakfast, what rotten human beings the carpetbaggers were, what swell guys the Confederates had for generals, including Abner Doubleday, allegedly responsible for This American Pastime, and Nathan Bedford Forrest was definitely responsible for This American Pastime. There are still state parks named after Nathan Bedford Forrest. Born in the USA. But the thing that Mr. Dude was careful to emphasize above all else was that the Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights. And our ears were not yet trained to know a dog whistle when we heard one.
If the Confederacy was not about slavery, somebody should really go back in time and tell the fucking Confederacy that.
All of which seems as distant to the topic of Dr. Seuss as New Jersey is to Fiji. But I told you that story in order to better discuss Part 3, the conversation almost no one wants to have. As I mentioned, the instinct of the Dr. Seuss people to remove hateful imagery from their publishing line is basically good, and to not directly profit from books that could hurt their readers. Here's my position. It might be controversial. No one gets the credit or the blame for it but me if it is wrong. If we try and succeed to get rid of the hateful imagery without addressing the root cause, it is mighty hard to make headway against systemic racism, because systemic racism is big. And it is hurtful and it is hard to talk about. But if people for realsies want it to stop, and they're not willing to have conversations about it, you know who benefits? Racists. They love it when people who are hungry for change do not speak, and racists love to speak. And as we saw in the case of the dreadful Mr. Dude, some of them go so far as to get teaching certificates so they can speak their poison into your children's ears. I'd love something better for coming generations. When you get right down to it, what, you may ask, does all of that have to do with Dr. Seuss? I'm glad you asked. Part 4. How Dr. Seuss Could Help. Back in 2008, Warner Brothers released a collection of their Oscar-winning cartoons from back in the day. Some of them are now considered offensive, but bearing this in mind, Warner Brothers still released these cartoons with the following content disclosure. The animated shorts you are about to see are a product of their time. They may depict some of the ethnic and racial prejudices that were commonplace in American society. These depictions were wrong then and are wrong today. While the following does not represent the Warner Brothers view of today's society, the animated shorts are being presented as they were originally created because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Like some studios. Did I mention my spirit animal is the mouse? Moving right along. I don't think it is wrong to remove 6 offensive titles from dozens of really good titles in order to not hurt one's readership. That is all fine. What I think would be more productive is to have a limited release, or to release the books with a similar caveat attached to them. If you have ever tried to publish a hardback color copy of a children's book, you know that it is expensive AF, and that a 38-page piece of kidlit is not appreciably more expensive than a 36-page piece of kidlit. With the extra couple of pages front and back, you could put a similar caveat in the Seuss books to what Warner Brothers did with their Oscar winners. And with the other 3 pages of blank space, you could advertise your other, better titles. You could show love to some unappreciated titles that are by or for persons of color. Or you can include a lesson plan for brave teachers who would like to get a dialogue going between students of varying pigmentation. Questions to ask in a classroom setting where students of color felt like they had a safe place to talk, and students of the pale persuasion might be more inclined to listen. Because by the time they get to be big people, and you know what stinkers they are, pale folks are less likely to ask questions, and the persons of color are tired, because it was never their job to teach the pale folks to be respectful. And Part 5. Final thoughts. A person is a person, no matter how small. The TLDR version of this whole rambling affair is, Fox and Socks was a pretty good book. Dr. Seuss was a pretty good author and illustrator, but he was not a demigod and he made mistakes. If the books with questionable imagery never come back, behold, the world still turns, and time keeps on slipping into the future. But if for some reason they come back from the dead, I would love for them to be used as teaching tools to make people less racist, not more racist. As always, thank you for giving these videos a shot. I post whenever the day job allows. If I said something superlatively stupid, it wouldn't surprise me. And if I said anything that got your dander up so completely that you have to leave me a hateful comment, thanks in advance for your engagement. And remember, my dears, they cannot cancel you if you were never scheduled. Meantime, take it easy. Loves you. Bye.
Like my channel, buy my crap, doo-dah, doo-dah. There's no time to take a nap, oh the doo-dah day. Hey!
I gotta quit investing in jazzy t-shirts because you can't really see them in frame, but I really did dress up for the occasion. I swear by all that is holy that my spirit animal really is the mouse. One of my godsons at one time in his life was actually rather good at telling people what their spirit animals were. Made a teacher cry. He told her spirit animal was a sperm whale. And at first she was all like, dang it, kid, I know I gotta lose some weight, but... And he said, no, because sperm whales look after their young, and that is why you're a teacher. Aww. And in all honesty, it hurt my ego a little bit when he told me that my spirit animal was a mouse. Until I remembered me a wonderful interview that Walt Disney gave in which he described his first drawing of Mickey Mouse after having lost Oswald the Rabbit to another studio and making other plans. And he talked about what a wonderful character he thought that was, because the mouse is basically sympathetic, but so many people are afraid of him, quoth he, including myself. Walt Disney was afraid of mice. Mice were to Disney what bats were to Batman. I can deal with being basically sympathetic, but having lots of people afraid of me. Fox and Socks, our game is done, sir. Thank you for a lot of fun, sir.